I thought my mom's house was safe until I found the deed, signed by someone I'd never met. If you've ever felt like your world shifted in a single breath, or questioned whether the people who raised you ever really loved you, stay with me. This story might hurt, but it's one you need to hear, because this didn't start with a lawyer or a courtroom. It started with a signature and the sound of my mother's voice, gone too soon. I'm Sienna. I'm 34. I work as an accountant in Portland, Oregon. My life's quiet, numbers mostly, black and white. But grief, that's a different kind of math. Before I tell you how I forced my father and his wife to beg me for a settlement, subscribe. One small click that means the world to storytellers like me trying to bring you even better stories. Back then, I wasn't preparing court filings. I was just standing in my mom's attic, ankle deep in dust and regret. The floorboards creaked like they remembered her. Sunlight pushed through the warped blinds and slanted stripes, catching the edges of old boxes marked spring clothes, Xmas ornaments, and finally, Sienna. My fingers hovered. I hadn't opened that one in 15 years. Inside, our last photo, Mom and me. I was 12. Her smile still lit the room. Mine was braced with the awkward hope of a child who still believed promises meant something. Tucked behind the frame was a yellowed manila envelope. No label, just a single sheet inside. My stomach dropped before I even saw the name. It wasn't mine. It wasn't hers either. The deed to my mother's house, signed over to someone named Joel Harding. Who the hell was Joel Harding? I didn't remember walking down the stairs. Didn't remember grabbing my phone, only the way my thumb trembled as I hit Dad's contact. He answered like I was interrupting something important. Sienna? Everything okay? My voice cracked. I found the deed. It's not in Mom's name. Not in mine either. Who is Joel Harding? He sighed. It's just business, Sienna. Things change. My throat burned. You told me this house was mine. A pause. Then he chuckled. Don't be dramatic. Your mother left a mess. I cleaned it up. Sign it over. We'll make sure you're taken care of. Click. I stared at the phone like it had slapped me. Taken care of? The scent of cedar and mothballs closed in. I pressed my back against the attic wall, the picture frame still in my hands. It didn't make sense. Mom wouldn't give this place up. She loved every creaky floorboard, every crooked window. She said it was the only place she ever felt safe. The sun shifted. Light struck something metal behind a stack of boxes, a filing cabinet, locked. I'd never seen it before. Or maybe I never thought to look. My heart pounded as I crouched beside it, brushing away years of dust. A name etched into a tarnished label slot. C. Varick, personal, Mom. I swallowed. Was there more? Was this planned all along? I stood in that attic, surrounded by shadows and silence, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't sure who my father really was. They stole my mother's legacy. Why? The photo sat on my nightstand now. I couldn't stop looking at it. Mom's arm around my shoulder, a glint of sun on her necklace, her smile soft but guarded. I was 10 in that picture. That summer, Dad promised me the house would always be mine. I remembered the way his hand ruffled my hair as he said it. This place is your legacy, kiddo. One day, it'll all be yours. But now the only thing I owned was a growing sense of betrayal. The air in my apartment felt heavier than usual. Portland's summer rain hadn't let up, and the gray outside pressed against the windows like a weight. I curled on the couch, blanket up to my chin, the envelope clutched like a lifeline. Something was off. That fake name on the deed, the way Dad laughed when I called him. He'd been waiting for me to find out. I opened my laptop and searched Joel Harding. Nothing. No LinkedIn. No property records that made sense. A ghost. The smell of Mom's attic still clung to my sweater. Dust, cedar, and something faintly floral. I closed my eyes and tried to remember. Back when I was little, I thought our house was magic. The way light streamed through the stained glass panels on the stairwell, the secret pantry behind the kitchen bookshelf, the echo when I shouted from the upstairs hallway. Dad used to say it was a house full of stories. One summer night I couldn't sleep. I came downstairs and found him sitting in the dark, drink in hand, staring at the walls. I asked if he was okay. He didn't answer at first, just reached out, pulled me into his lap. "This house, it'll never leave you, Sienna," he whispered. "Promise me you'll protect it, even if I'm not around." At the time, I didn't know what that meant. Now I wondered if he even knew. The doorbell jerked me out of the memory. I checked the peephole and saw her, Rebecca, my stepmother. My jaw tightened. She was the last person I wanted to see. I opened the door halfway. "What do you want?" She wore a blazer too sharp for the drizzle outside, umbrella in one hand, a thin folder in the other. "Just thought I'd bring some clarity, since you're so confused." Her smile was tight, professional. I didn't move. She pushed the folder forward. "Transfer documents and a check from the sale." I took it slowly, my fingers brushing hers for a second, ice cold. Inside was a cashier's check, $50,000. I stared at it, the number blurred. 50,000 for my mother's entire life? She cleared her throat. "It's more than fair. You were never on the title. Your mom didn't update her will. Joel handled the paperwork cleanly. Nothing illegal." My heart pounded. "Who is Joel Harding?" She blinked, a beat too long. Then, cool as stone, "A client and a friend." I swallowed. "You used to be a lawyer. You know this isn't fair." She stepped back, umbrella snapping open. "Fair's a fairy tale, sweetheart. You want to fight? Fine. But remember, you weren't her only family, and your dad's trying to move on." My voice cracked. "This house, it's all I have left of her." Rebecca tilted her head. "Your mom clung to things, dreams, sentiment. It made her weak." The words landed like a slap. She turned and walked away, her heels clicking sharp against the wet pavement. I stood there, hand clenched around the check, until the cold crept into my bones. Inside, I ripped the envelope apart. Beneath the check was another page, terms of silence, a non-disclosure agreement. They wanted me quiet, in exchange for my inheritance. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about something Mom once told me. "Walls remember, Sienna. That's why some people need them gone." Did she know something back then? Did she ever trust Rebecca? Or had she just hoped love would be enough? I reached for the photo again. This time I noticed the frame. The bottom right corner had a faint scratch, like it had been pried open. I ran my finger along the edge, and it popped. A folded slip of paper slid out, a note, in Mom's handwriting. "If anything happens, find the letter in the drawer. Don't trust what they tell you. Love, M." My heart stopped. The drawer. I knew exactly which one. Back at the house, upstairs, in her old writing desk. I hadn't opened it. I couldn't bring myself to. Until now. The rain hadn't stopped by morning. I drove in silence, windshield wipers slapping like a metronome of dread. The house looked the same, but emptier. Even from the outside, it felt like something had been taken. Inside, everything smelled off, like bleach and something artificial. I climbed the stairs slowly, the banister slick under my palm. Her room hadn't changed. I opened the drawer. At first, nothing. Then I felt it. A seam at the bottom. A false panel. My fingers trembled as I lifted it. A letter. Folded. Yellowed. Dated 2 weeks before her death. "Sienna, if you're reading this, it means I wasn't strong enough to stop what's coming. Your father's made promises he can't keep. There are debts. Lies. I've tried to protect this home, but I'm afraid he'll find a way. Don't let him take it. Not this. Not you. I love you. Mom." I couldn't breathe. She knew. She tried. All those years of silence. Her soft deflections whenever I asked about money. It wasn't just pride. It was fear. I clutched the letter to my chest, and for the first time in years, I let myself cry. Not the polite kind, the silent kind. This was full-bodied grief, grief laced with rage. They'd buried her dreams beneath paperwork, called them old walls. They didn't just steal her house, they rewrote her memory. I looked around the room. Her favorite books still lined the shelf, a scarf draped over the chair. But it all felt like an illusion now. I whispered into the silence, "What else did they hide from me?" And I swear the walls answered with a creak. The house hadn't stopped humming. Even after I left, the silence felt noisy, like it had swallowed my mother's voice and was now trying to choke on mine. I sat in my apartment, the letter still open on the coffee table. Every line blurred from where my tears had landed. She'd known. She'd tried to warn me. And still, I hadn't seen it coming. A knock rattled the door, not gentle. 3 hard raps, then silence. My heart jerked into my throat. I looked through the peephole. Dad and Rebecca. I didn't open it right away. My hand hovered over the handle like it might burn me. But I wasn't 10 years old anymore, so I opened the door. Dad smiled, like this was a casual visit. "Can we come in?" I stepped aside. They walked past me like they owned the place. Rebecca's heels clicked across my hardwood floors as she scanned the apartment with disdain. Dad sat like he couldn't feel how brittle the air was. "You've been busy," he said, looking directly at the envelope on my table. My stomach turned. "You broke into Mom's drawer," he waved a hand. "Don't be dramatic. It was a precaution." I folded my arms. "You lied to me." Rebecca laughed, low and sharp. "You're going to call it lying, Sienna? Really? Your mother died without a will. The house defaulted to your father. It's not theft. It's law." The way she said it, clinical, detached, it made my skin crawl. "She left me a letter." Rebecca's gaze flicked toward the envelope. "So? So she knew what you were doing." Dad sighed and leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Look, Sienna, I get it. You're hurt. But dragging this into court, it'll ruin everyone." I blinked. "You sold Mom's house, behind my back. That is ruin." He looked up, his face tightening. "It's already sold. That ship's gone. You raise a fuss now, all you'll do is make noise." Rebecca opened her briefcase and slid a new set of papers onto my coffee table. "Sign this. It's an agreement to drop any potential claims. In return, you'll receive a revised settlement, $75,000, tax-free." I stared at the papers, not touching them. She added, "But there's one condition. You stay quiet, publicly, legally, permanently." My fingers curled into fists. Silence for 75 grand. My mother's voice, traded for hush money. My own history, whitewashed and stamped for resale. "You think I'm going to sign this?" Rebecca's smile didn't waver. "I think you'll do the smart thing." I shook my head. "You're underestimating how much this house meant to her." Dad stood slowly. "You're underestimating how far we'll go to protect what's left of this family." His voice had an edge now. I looked at him, really looked, and it struck me like a cold slap. He wasn't even ashamed. He believed this was justified. Rebecca added softly, "You're alone in this, Sienna. No will, no legal claim, no backup. You go public, and we'll bury you in paperwork and court fees. You'll walk away with nothing." She picked up the pen from the side table and offered it to me. "Sign now, or lose everything." For a moment, I almost did. The weight of it all, the money, the threat, the isolation, pulled at me like a tide. But then I remembered my mother's handwriting. "Don't trust what they tell you." I stared down at the pen, then back up at them. "No," Rebecca's eyes narrowed. "You sure?" "I'm sure." Dad stepped forward. His tone shifted, low, sharp. "You always were ungrateful." My voice shook, but I held my ground. "You always counted on me staying that way." They left without another word. The door clicked shut behind them, but I couldn't stop shaking. I paced the apartment, rage burning under my skin. They weren't just thieves. They were erasing her, turning her life into a transaction. I grabbed my phone and started recording. I spoke directly into the lens. "This is my story. My name is Sienna Varick. My parents sold my mother's house behind my back and demanded my silence. I won't stay quiet." I saved the video. Didn't post it, not yet, but it was ready. Later that night, I replayed the conversation in my head, word for word. Rebecca's voice haunted me. "You're alone in this." But I wasn't completely. There had to be someone who could help, someone who knew the law, someone who cared. I searched through my emails, scrolling past years of receipts and junk, and there, tucked in a folder from a tax case 3 years ago, was her name. Eva Linwood, my old legal rep. Tough, brilliant, no nonsense. She'd helped me once. Maybe she'd do it again. I typed out a message. Subject, need legal advice, urgent. Body, Eva, I'm sorry to reach out like this, but I've discovered something about my mother's estate. It's complicated, and I think they forged documents. I need help. My finger hovered over send. Then I clicked it. The email vanished. Seconds later, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. No one spoke, just breathing. Then, "We know where you live." Click. The call dropped. I froze. My heart pounded so loud it drowned out the rain tapping at the windows. My hands trembled as I looked around the apartment. Had they been here? Were they outside? I checked the locks, pulled the blinds shut. Then I sat in the dark. I should have been scared, but mostly I was done. I whispered into the stillness, "I won't break. I need help." The next morning, the air smelled like burnt toast and old panic. I hadn't slept. Not really. Just drifted in and out of shallow dreams where the walls whispered and my mom's voice kept saying, "Don't trust what they tell you." My phone buzzed. Eva Linwood. Subject, "Meet today, noon. Bring everything." I exhaled. Finally, a lifeline. The lawyer's office sat in an old brick building downtown. No sign, just a tarnished brass number above the door. I pushed through, blinking at the sudden shift from gray streetlight to warm interior. Amber bulbs glowed low, reflecting off dark wood paneling. It smelled like old paper, coffee, and something sharper, like cold strategy. Eva stood behind her desk, arms crossed. Same sleek ponytail. Same don't mess with me eyes. She didn't waste time. What exactly did they take? I handed her the deed copy, the silence contract, and my mom's letter. She read fast, lips tightening with every line. When she finished, she looked up and said, "You're right. Something's rotten." My shoulders dropped a little. "So I'm not crazy." "No," she said, "but they're counting on you feeling like you are." She leaned in, tapping the deed. "Who's Joel Harding?" "I don't know. Stepmom said he was a client and a friend." Eva's fingers danced over her keyboard. A second later, her screen lit up with records. She squinted. "Interesting." I leaned closer. There he was, Joel Harding. No family listed, no social presence, but buried inside a dry real estate filing, a connection I hadn't seen. "Your stepmom notarized this deed transfer," Eva said quietly. I blinked. "She notarized her own transaction?" Eva nodded slowly. "Which is highly unethical, and possibly illegal, depending on the timing." My hands curled into the armrests. "So she lied. She knew what she was doing." "She orchestrated it," Eva said. "But here's the bigger problem." She pulled up another screen. Bank lien records. There, in black and white, was Dad's name. And next to it, gambling debts. Past due, over $180,000. My mouth went dry. "No." Eva's voice softened. "I think they sold the house to pay off your father's debts." I couldn't move. It was like hearing your childhood home had been burned to heat someone else's poker night. "He always said he hated gambling," I murmured. "He used to get angry at commercials for the lottery." Eva turned the monitor toward me. "He's been in deep for years. 2 liens, 1 lawsuit, and 3 emergency transfers in the last year. That house was his golden ticket out." I felt like I'd been punched. I stood up, pacing the room. The air felt thinner here, like the walls were pressing in. I whispered, "He didn't sell it to move on. He sold it to save himself." There was a long silence. Then Eva said, "We can fight this, but it's going to get ugly." I swallowed hard. "How ugly?" "Character attacks, counterclaims. They'll try to discredit you, paint you as unstable, bitter, maybe even threaten you again." I nodded. "They already have." Eva didn't flinch. "Then we hit first. We drafted the beginnings of a case. Fraud, undue influence, breach of fiduciary duty, and possible elder abuse if we could prove my mom had been coerced or manipulated before she died." Before I left, Eva handed me a copy of the lien documents. I held them like they were radioactive. Out on the street, the wind had picked up. My coat flapped behind me, my fingers numb around the paper folder. I found myself back in front of the house. The gate creaked like it recognized me. Inside, the living room looked the same floral rug, same sun-faded couch. But the energy was different now, colder, emptier. I stepped into the kitchen. Once, I'd sat at that table while Mom made lasagna and told me stories about her first apartment. Now it smelled like cleaning chemicals and silence. A movement upstairs snapped my attention. I froze. Then, footsteps. Slow, heavy. I wasn't alone. My breath hitched. I moved to the base of the staircase, every creak echoing louder than it should. "Hello?" No answer. I took the stairs one by one. When I reached the top landing, nothing. No lights on. No doors open. Then I saw it. Dad's briefcase, sitting at the end of the hallway. I hadn't been up here since Mom's funeral. I opened the nearest door, his old office. The room smelled like whiskey and printer ink. Stacks of folders lined the desk. I hesitated, then opened one. Bank statements, transactions, dozens of small payments, casino names, betting sites, proof. I turned to leave, and there she was. Rebecca, leaning in the doorway, arms crossed, her voice low, dangerous. "You really shouldn't be here." I didn't flinch. "Neither should you." Her eyes scanned the folder in my hands. "So that's your game, dig up his dirt." "Why'd you do it?" I asked. "Why help him bury her?" She laughed. "Because he was drowning, and your mother, God rest her soul, never knew how to swim." My jaw clenched. "You're not even sorry." She stepped forward. "Sorry doesn't pay off $180,000 in losses. Joel was clean, anonymous, and you? You were sentimental and slow, easy to silence." I swallowed hard. "Not anymore." She leaned close, her breath cold. "Be careful, Sienna. We've made sacrifices. You start making noise again, someone might come knocking." She walked past me, calm as a breeze. I stood there, folder in hand, my heart thundering against my ribs. This wasn't just about the house anymore. This was war. I didn't sleep the night after Rebecca threatened me in my mother's house. I lay on my side, watching headlights crawl across my ceiling, heart pounding with too many what-ifs. But there was one thing I knew for sure. They thought fear would make me fold. They were wrong. The next morning, I walked into Eva's office wearing my best blazer. It didn't matter that my hands trembled when I signed the papers, because underneath that tremble was something stronger: resolve. "I'm ready," I said. "Let's take them down." Eva slid the retainer contract across the desk. "We're filing under civil fraud and undue influence. First move is a cease and desist. After that, we hit them with the lawsuit." I pressed my pen to the paper, signed my name, and felt something shift. Not just in the case. In me. It was time to fight. That afternoon, Eva's assistant hand-delivered the legal summons to my dad and Rebecca at their real estate office. And I wish I could say I didn't care what their faces looked like when they saw it, but I did, because they deserved to feel the floor drop. Eva sent me the security footage. I watched Dad's expression change from confusion to rage in 5 seconds flat. Rebecca stayed calm, but her nostrils flared. Eva smiled when she handed me the USB. "Let them come to us now." 3 days later, they did. Rebecca filed a countersuit, alleging I was mentally unstable and emotionally volatile, accusing me of harassment and potential threats to property. I read the document 3 times, my stomach curdling with every word. "She's trying to flip the narrative," I said. "Make me the threat." Eva nodded. "It's a standard smear. We expected this." I paced her office, chewing my thumbnail. "Do they have anything to back that up?" Eva raised an eyebrow. "Do you have anything to hide?" I hesitated. There was one time, after Mom died, a panic attack that landed me in urgent care. Rebecca had driven me, back when she still pretended to care. I'd cried in the passenger seat while she held my hand. Now I realized she'd been cataloging the weakness. "They'll twist it," I said, "make it sound like I was unhinged." "They'll try," Eva said. "But we've got something they don't. Motive, paper trails, and your mom's letter." I sat back down. My legs had gone shaky. "They're going to come for me hard, aren't they?" She leaned forward. "They already are." The next week passed in a blur of prep meetings, evidence collection, and depositions. I pulled out every scrap of memory, every bank statement, every text that hinted at coercion or manipulation. Some nights I found myself staring at old voicemails from my dad, back when he still sounded like a father. "Love you, kiddo. Let's get lunch soon." I'd wanted to believe those messages meant something. Now I knew they were placeholders. Cheap glue over a fracture he never intended to fix. Eva coached me through the deposition prep. "Keep it factual. Stay composed, no matter what they say." Easier said than done, because when we sat across from them in the mediation room, I didn't see a father and stepmother. I saw strangers wearing masks shaped like family. Rebecca went first. Composed, smug, every word dipped in ice. "She's unstable. She accused us of theft, broke into our property, and recorded us without consent. We've tried to be generous." I almost laughed out loud at that last part. Then Dad spoke, and this part I wasn't ready for. "I've always loved my daughter," he said, "but she's always had trouble processing. After her mother passed, we tried to support her, but it was like she disappeared into grief. Now she's weaponizing that grief." Every word landed like a slap. I looked straight at him. He wouldn't meet my eyes. My turn. I kept my voice steady, even though I wanted to scream. "My mother loved that house. She trusted me to protect it. You didn't just sell a property. You erased her. You used my grief as a tool. But I'm not broken. I'm not unstable. And I'm not staying quiet." Silence stretched long and thin after that. Outside, the clouds had rolled in. The light through the windows looked bruised. Eva closed the folder. "We'll see you in court." We left without another word. That night, I found myself back at the house again. I don't know why. Maybe I needed to see it, remind myself what I was fighting for. I stood in the entryway, letting the quiet wrap around me. Then I heard something, a creak, upstairs. I froze. The sound came again, slow, deliberate. I crept up the staircase, heart in my throat. At the top, I paused, listened. Nothing. I walked toward Mom's old bedroom. Then I saw it, the attic door, closed. But the lock had been turned. I hadn't touched it, and I knew it had been locked since the day she died. My hand hovered over the knob. A whisper of cold air slid down the hallway, raising goosebumps on my arms. Something was up there. I backed away slowly, heart pounding in my ears. Not tonight. I needed answers, but I needed backup more. Because whatever they were hiding, it wasn't just legal, it was personal, and it wasn't over. I returned the next day, just after sunset. This time, I wasn't running, I was searching. The attic door still loomed at the top of the hallway, untouched but humming with weight, like it had waited years for someone to listen. I ran my fingers over the brass doorknob. Cold. The lock had been turned, but the key was missing. A voice inside me whispered, "You already know who locked it." I stepped back. The hallway light buzzed overhead. Outside, a wind picked up, sharp and restless, scraping against the window panes. The house didn't feel empty. It felt alert. I tried every key I had. None fit. I pressed my ear to the door. Silence. But not the peaceful kind. The dense kind. Heavy, like something was behind it holding its breath. "I'll find a way in," I whispered. I left the house, but not the weight. It followed me home, curled into my lungs like fog. That night, I pulled out Mom's old journals, the ones I hadn't touched since the funeral. Page after page of grief, sketches of flowers, budget notes, even old grocery lists. But something stopped me on a page dated just 3 weeks before she died. If I lock it, maybe I'll forget it's there. No context, just that one line. I stared at the sentence until the ink seemed to tremble. What had she locked away? The next morning I called a locksmith, told him it was an antique latch, original to a Victorian home. He said he'd come at 5. The hours dragged. I paced my apartment, phone in one hand, journal in the other. Part of me didn't want to open that door. What if it shattered everything I thought I knew about her, about me? The locksmith arrived in a Navy van, smelled faintly of tobacco and oil, and didn't ask questions. 30 minutes later, he had the tumblers clicking. Then, a dull pop. The latch gave. He nodded once. "You're all set." I watched him leave, then turned back to the door. My hand hovered over the knob. The air up there was different, still but charged, like static clinging to grief. I opened it slowly. The attic was dim, lit only by slanted afternoon light slipping through the dusty window. Particles floated in the air like ash. It smelled like cedar, paper, and something faintly sour. The floor creaked beneath me. The temperature dropped 2 degrees. There were boxes everywhere, labeled in Mom's cursive. Old tax returns wedding. China Sienna, age 6. I stepped deeper in, heart thudding with each footfall. A figure shifted in the corner. I froze, but it was just a mirror, draped in cloth. Still, I could feel something watching me. I turned toward the far end of the room. A trunk, metal, padlocked, and beneath it, scratches in the floor like it had been dragged, hurriedly, violently. I crouched down, Faint impressions in the dust. Footprints. Smaller than Dad's. Rebecca's? I stood and yanked at the trunk, locked. But this lock was cheap, rusted, almost decorative. I used the end of a broken curtain rod and jammed it into the latch. After a few sharp twists, it gave. I opened the lid. Inside were papers, dozens of them, some crumpled, others in neat folders. At the top, power of attorney, draft only. My mom's name, no signature. Beneath it, medical directives, revised dated just days before her hospitalization. The paperwork had Rebecca's name all over it, notes in her handwriting, legal edits, but none of it had been filed. She tried to rewrite my mom's rights, but either Mom refused or didn't live long enough to sign. My breath shook as I read one line out loud. If deemed mentally compromised, the property shall transfer to next of kin under joint control. They were building a trap, even then, and she fought it. I sat back on my heels, pulse hammering in my ears. Behind me, something shifted. I turned sharply, nothing, but the door was no longer fully open. A shadow passed the frosted attic glass. I stood quickly, crossed the floor. By the time I made it to the hall, it was empty, but I heard it, the faint creak of the stairs below. Someone had been here. I rushed down, yanked the front door open. Only the wind, the trees, the sound of a car engine starting in the distance. Too late. I locked the door behind me, heart still racing. Back in the attic, I gathered everything, files, papers, the unsigned drafts. When I stepped into the hallway again, the light bulb above me flickered once, then died. I didn't breathe until I was in my car, the trunk box beside me on the passenger seat. I called Eva. "Tell me you have something," she said, answering fast. "I have everything, and someone else knows it." There was a pause. "You think they followed you?" "I know they were inside." Her voice hardened. "Then we move faster. Meet me tomorrow. Bring the trunk." But before we hung up, I had to ask, "Do you think my mom knew how far they'd go?" Eva was quiet. Then, "I think she hoped you'd never have to find out." I stared at my reflection in the rearview mirror. I didn't look like the daughter anymore. I looked like the last person left to tell the truth. But someone else was watching. Someone who didn't want that door opened. I didn't knock. I pushed open the door to their condo like I'd lived there once, which I hadn't, and let it slam behind me. The look on Rebecca's face? Cold, calculating, and slightly amused. She sat at the kitchen island, swirling coffee in a porcelain mug, like we were just two women catching up on a Saturday morning. Dad came around the corner next, buttoning his shirt, startled but trying not to show it. "You're not supposed to be here," he said flatly. I dropped the file onto the counter. The impact echoed. "Tell me what this is." Rebecca's eyes didn't flinch, but her fingers tightened on the mug. Dad opened the folder. Draft power of attorney. Unfiled directives. Notes with Rebecca's handwriting scrawled in the margins. His jaw clenched. "Where did you get this?" "From the attic," I said, "where Mom locked it. And from the look on your face, I'd say you knew exactly what was in there." Rebecca set down her cup, quietly, deliberately. "That was never meant for you to see." "That's the point," I snapped. "She didn't trust either of you, and now I know why." Dad stepped forward, hands half raised like he was calming a dog. "Sienna, you're emotional. You're twisting this into something it isn't. She was sick, and you tried to take advantage of it. You rewrote her decisions before she was even gone." His mouth opened, then closed. I turned to Rebecca. "How long were you planning it? Before she was diagnosed or after?" Rebecca didn't blink. She was slipping, confused. We did what we had to do to stabilize things. "She wasn't confused," I said through my teeth. "She was scared, and you used that." Dad's voice sharpened. "Watch your tone." I turned to him, voice lower, colder. "Or what? You'll call your lawyer? Claim I'm unstable again?" His face twisted into something bitter. Rebecca slid the folder across the counter, like pushing the evidence away would erase it. "You're in over your head," she said. "You don't understand how much damage you're doing, to yourself." I stepped forward until we were inches apart. "You're the one who should be scared. I'm not walking away this time." There was silence, thick, tense, and then she leaned in, so close I could feel her breath. "You want to play the martyr?" she whispered. "Go ahead, but when you lose, and you will lose, don't come crawling back." She turned and walked down the hallway. I looked at Dad one last time. His eyes didn't meet mine. "You know what's right," I said, "but you keep choosing her." And then I left. Outside, the air felt heavy with oncoming rain. My chest burned, not from yelling, but from the cold truth settling in my bones. They were never going to admit it, and they'd burn everything before they gave it back. Back at Eva's office, I laid the files out across the table. She scanned them quickly, brow furrowed. "This is strong," she said. "A pattern of coercion, possible intent to commit fraud. This could tip the whole case." I leaned against the desk. "They threatened me again." Eva looked up. "Did you record it?" "No, but I won't need to. They're unraveling." Her jaw tightened. "Then let's pull the thread." That night, I tried to rest, but my mind kept returning to a memory. I was 11. It was a rainy Saturday. Mom had made pancakes, humming off-key in the kitchen. Dad came home late from an open house. He kissed her cheek and said, "Everything's just business, sweetheart." She'd smiled. But I remember now, her shoulders tensed. Back then, I thought it was just about work. Now I knew. That phrase wasn't reassurance. It was a warning. I was halfway between sleep and memory when I heard it. A soft knock at my apartment door. My pulse kicked up. I glanced at the clock. 11:41 p.m. I moved quietly to the peephole. No one. But on the floor, a manila envelope. I opened the door slowly. Empty hallway. No footsteps. Just the envelope. I brought it inside with trembling hands and tore it open. Inside, photos, black and white security stills, Rebecca and my father, shaking hands with a man in sunglasses, time-stamped, dated just weeks before the sale. Behind them, a sign that read, "Tri-Point Holdings," a name I didn't recognize, but scrawled across the final photo in marker. "Ask about Tri-Point and the fake buyer." No sender, no note, just those words. I stared at them for a long time. The puzzle pieces were changing shape. They hadn't just sold the house, they'd sold it to someone else entirely, and someone else out there wanted me to know. I stood in the silence of my living room, every window locked, every light suddenly too dim. Someone was helping me, or hunting me, and I had no idea which. I didn't sleep. The envelope sat on my kitchen counter like it was breathing, thick with implication, humming with unanswered questions. Who left it? Why now? And what the hell was Tri-Point Holdings? By morning, my thoughts felt bruised. I brought the envelope to Ava's office. She scanned the photos quickly, eyes narrowing. "This is bad." I leaned forward. "Bad how?" She laid them out in a line, my father, Rebecca, and the mystery man with mirrored sunglasses, all of them grinning in front of a Tri-Point Holdings sign. Eva tapped the final photo. "This is a shell company. Tri-Point Holdings isn't real. It's a pass-through. They use it to move assets without scrutiny." My heart thudded. So the house was never sold to Joel Harding. That name was a front. This company bought it, quietly, probably using dummy paperwork. Your father likely pocketed the money himself. She looked up at me. "This makes it bigger than we thought." My voice cracked. "How much bigger?" "Wire fraud, real estate fraud, possibly tax evasion. But here's the problem." I already knew what she'd say. "They'll do anything to protect it." An hour later, I received the notice. A new legal summons. They were escalating. This time, against me. Petition for conservatorship, mental unfitness to manage property. My knees buckled. "They're trying to have me declared incompetent?" Eva snatched the document from my hand. "This is outrageous." My throat tightened. "Can they actually do this?" "Only if they can prove you're mentally unstable, with documentation." I blinked. "Documentation?" Eva's eyes scanned the motion. She froze. "Sienna, do you recognize this name?" She pointed to a section. Historical Psychiatric Evaluation, Dr. T. Rowan, March 2022. I nearly dropped the folder. That was the urgent care visit, the panic attack after Mom died. I'd seen a grief counselor once. It wasn't even therapy, just an intake interview. "But I never signed a release. How did they get this?" Eva's face hardened. "They didn't, which means they forged it." My chest filled with fire. "She used her law credentials to fake my records." Eva nodded. "And that's how they're framing you." I was already pulling up my phone. "Then we beat them at their own game." "What are you doing?" Calling the clinic. If they confirm the records were never released, we've got proof of falsification." The call rang twice. "Hello, this is Brookfield Mental Health Services. How can I help you?" I swallowed. "Hi, I need to speak to someone about a patient file. My file. It's urgent." I gave them the details. Waited on hold. The hold music was tinny, distant. When the receptionist came back, her voice was careful. "I'm sorry, Ms. Varick, but according to our system, your file was requested and transferred to an attorney of record, Rebecca Crane, 6 months ago." I went still. "No," I whispered, "that's not possible. I never signed anything." "I understand," she said gently, "but the file has been marked as released with a signed authorization form." I hung up without saying goodbye. Ava stared at me. I just nodded. "She forged my consent." "She's trying to trap you, Sienna. Paint you as paranoid. Make the court believe you're unraveling." I let the silence stretch. My hand pressed to my forehead. My skin was cold, but my blood felt electric. "They're cornering me." "No," Ava said. "They think they are." That night, I sat in the dark, scrolling through Rebecca's social media. Perfect, curated, a world of fake brunches and power heels. But tucked in the comments under one of her old firm photos, I found something. A name, Teresa Rowan, Ph.D. Not a psychiatrist, not a licensed therapist, just a self-styled emotional resilience coach. Her address was listed under a suite in an office park, shared space. I drove there the next morning. Teresa answered the door in a mauve cardigan and 2 white sneakers. She looked like someone's overly chipper aunt. I didn't bother pretending. "I'm Sienna Varick. You submitted a statement about my mental health to the court. I never met you." Her smile froze. "I think you're mistaken." I stepped closer. "If I subpoena you, you'll testify to that under oath?" Her eyes flicked sideways, toward a desk. A pile of cash sat there, half visible beneath a mail stack. Blood roared in my ears. "I suggest," I said, voice trembling, "that you retract your report, because forging medical evaluations is a felony." She stammered. I didn't forge anything. I just notarized the intake form she gave me. She said it was for court insurance purposes." "She," I repeated. "Rebecca Crane." Silence. Teresa didn't deny it. I left without another word. In my car, I recorded a voice memo. "My stepmother submitted a falsified mental health evaluation to the court using a known unlicensed coach. She paid her in cash. I've seen the cash, I have the name, and I will subpoena her if necessary." I sent it to Eva. By nightfall, Ava responded, "We're filing a fraud counterclaim tomorrow morning." I exhaled for the first time all day, but the relief didn't last. Around 11:00 p.m., I got another call. Blocked number. I let it ring, then go to voicemail. 30 seconds later, a message buzzed in. I played it. A voice I didn't recognize, but calm, male, careful. "Stop. You're getting close to things you don't understand. The house is just the surface. Back off, or you'll wish you had." Click. The silence after that was louder than the threat. They weren't just trying to discredit me anymore. They were warning me, which meant something under the house. Behind the fake buyer, the shell company, the forged evaluations, something bigger was buried, and I was getting too close. The voicemail echoed long after I hit pause. "Back off or you'll wish you had." The voice wasn't angry. It was calm, too calm. That's what made it terrifying. I replayed it, again, just to be sure. No name, no background noise, no distortion. Whoever left it wanted me to know they were close and listening. I sent the clip to Eva. Then I did what I hadn't done in weeks. I pulled the shades, double-locked the door, slept with the hallway light on, but the sleep didn't come. Instead, I lay still, listening, to the fridge hum, the faint tick of the hallway clock, the hollow sound of nothing happening outside my window. Except, there was something. At 3:17 a.m., my phone lit up. Unknown number. No voicemail this time, just a text. "They lied to you. The attic wasn't the only secret." I sat up. My mouth went dry. Another ping. "Check the house deed." The second page. Second page? I'd scanned the deed a dozen times, but maybe I'd missed something. I jumped out of bed, yanked the accordion file from my dining cabinet, and flipped through the documents. There it was. The title transfer to TriPoint Holdings, LLC. I turned the page. My stomach dropped. In small, faded print, almost like a footnote, was a clause I hadn't noticed. Property subdivided, parcel retention, see Schedule C. Parcel retention? I flipped through again. No Schedule C attached. Someone had removed it, or never included it. A portion of the land hadn't been sold, or at least, not officially. Why? I stood there, shivering in my pajama shirt, heart pounding like it was trying to outrun the truth. There was more. There was always more. The next morning, I drove straight to Eva's. We pulled up the original property filings. "You're right," she said, scanning the screen. "The back lot was separated out last year, quietly, no public record of a resale." I leaned in. "What's on that lot?" Eva clicked. A satellite image loaded slowly, pixel by pixel. It was overgrown, shadowed by trees, no clear structure. But then, there, barely visible, a concrete slab. No address, no outbuilding listed, just space. Eva exhaled. Whatever was back there, it's either hidden or gone. My thoughts raced. Mom always said the land behind the house used to be a garden. She stopped tending it after I left for college. Dad never went back there, or so I thought. "I need to see it," I said. "Sienna," Eva warned, "don't go alone." "I won't," I lied. That afternoon, I parked a block away and walked. The house loomed quiet behind its wrought iron gate, windows blank with disuse. I let myself in with the old key. Same creak, same stale air. I moved quickly, through the kitchen, past the dining room, and out the back door. The garden path was nearly gone, eaten up by weeds. Brambles scraped my jeans. The air smelled of soil, wet leaves, and something faintly chemical. The back fence had a gate, locked with a rusted chain. But I noticed something odd. The dirt near the fence was loose, disturbed, like someone had recently stepped through. I followed the indentation. My boots sunk an inch with every step. Then I found it, a hatch, half buried, steel, about the size of a storm drain, and sealed tight, no markings, no handle. But someone had wiped the leaves away. I crouched and pressed my palm to it. Cold. Suddenly my phone buzzed, unknown number. I didn't answer. The voicemail icon appeared. I listened. The same voice, this time lower. "We told you once. This is the last." Click. No breathing. No name. I stood, heart thundering. Behind me, a twig snapped. I turned. Nothing. But I wasn't alone. I felt it. I backed away slowly, step by step. Something in me screamed to run, so I did. Back through the yard, past the kitchen, out the front. I drove straight to Ava's, slid the phone across her desk, still shaking. She listened, frowned. "I'm filing for a protective order," she said. I nodded, swallowing panic. But I couldn't let it go. Later that night, I sat on my couch, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the photo of that concrete slab. I zoomed in, pixel by pixel. Then I saw it. A faint square outline inside the slab, like a cover. Something underneath, buried. Why go through the trouble of hiding it unless it mattered? What if Mom knew? What if she tried to stop them from finding it? The texts, the threats, the forged records. It wasn't just about the house anymore. It was about whatever they were trying to keep buried. Beneath concrete, beneath signatures, beneath me. And then, the final message came in. This time, no number. Just a text. "He wasn't the only one. You need to find the photo, the one she hid in the pantry wall." The pantry, the one Mom always kept locked, the one Dad never went near. I stared at the screen, a chill spreading from my spine to my toes. I didn't know who was feeding me pieces of the puzzle, but I knew this much. Someone was trying to stop me, and someone else wanted me to finish what my mother started. The text haunted me. Find the photo, the one she hid in the pantry wall. I couldn't shake the feeling that whoever was helping me wasn't just some curious bystander. They knew too much, too specifically. The pantry. Growing up, Mom kept it locked, said it was full of breakables, but I remembered something else. She never let Dad near it. That night, I parked 3 blocks away and approached the house on foot. No porch lights, no curtains drawn, just that stillness again, like the house was holding its breath. I let myself in. Each step on the hardwood floor felt louder than it should. The kitchen was cold. I ran my fingers along the old pantry door. The brass knob had tarnished over the years, but it still turned with a soft creak. Dust swirled in the beam of my flashlight. Shelves lined with empty jars, mismatched lids, faded labels. I tapped on the wall, inch by inch. Then, a hollow thud. My pulse spiked. I knelt, pressing my ear to the panel, a soft echo like the void behind drywall. I grabbed a screwdriver from the adjacent drawer and started prying gently at the panel's edge. It popped loose with a sigh. Inside was a shallow cavity, and in it, wrapped in a yellow dish towel, was a photograph. I unfolded it with trembling hands. A group photo, 5 people, smiling. My mom, Rebecca, my dad, a man I didn't recognize, and Joel Harding. I blinked. Joel wasn't a ghost. He was real. The back of the photo had a scribbled note in my mother's handwriting. Blackwood closing, May 2018. Watch the hands. What? I looked again and saw it. Joel's hand resting on a document, Rebecca's pen hovering just above it, and in the corner, a check, partially covered, addressed to Blackwood Development, LLC. The name rang like a bell I couldn't place. I snapped a photo and sent it to Eva. She called within minutes. "You just cracked it." I barely got the words out. "What is Blackwood?" A company Rebecca represented, unofficially, before she gave up her license. They were involved in a property laundering case in Nevada, disbanded after a whistleblower exposed them. My voice was a whisper. "You think they used it again?" "I think they never stopped." By morning, we had confirmation. Blackwood and Tri-Point shared an address, a P.O. box in Florida, masked under layers of corporate veil. And in the court filings Dad submitted, Tri-Point Holdings was listed as an independent purchaser with no prior relationship. Lie. Ava was livid. "We're not just dealing with property fraud now. This is organized deception. If we can prove they knew, we can bring everything down," I said. I wanted to scream or cry, but I didn't do either. I sat with my hands clenched around the edge of Eva's desk, letting the weight of it sink in. They'd created an entire false buyer, forged medical documents, and tried to erase my mother's voice from the will and the walls, but the cracks were showing. Still, Ava warned me, they're going to push back, hard. That same afternoon, Dad called me. First time in weeks. The caller ID froze me. I stared at it, thumb hovering. Then I picked up. His voice was tight, controlled. "You need to stop." "I found the photo," I said. "And the shell company, and the fake parcel split, so no, I don't think I will." A long pause. Then, "If this goes public, everyone loses." "No," I said quietly. "You lose." I finally stopped losing. "You really think your mother would have wanted this dragged through the courts?" I laughed, bitter. "She wanted her legacy protected. You sold it for debt and silence." His voice dropped. "Don't make me do something drastic." I hung up. 2 hours later, Eva texted, "Be at the courthouse tomorrow. They've filed for an emergency injunction." That night, I couldn't sleep. I pulled out Mom's journals again, searched for Blackwood, anything, found one line from the spring of 2018. They used Joel's name, said it wouldn't be traced. Rebecca smiled too quickly. My stomach churned. I remembered that spring. Mom had started locking her room. Dad had stopped staying for dinner. We thought it was grief, but maybe it was war. The next morning, the courthouse smelled like lemon floor cleaner and nerves. Eva handed me a folder before we entered. New discovery. We raided public business filings. Inside, a contract signed between Joel Harding and Tri-Point Holdings, acknowledging a fee for non-participatory lending. In short, a cut of the profit for staying quiet. We took our seats. The judge entered. The room rose, and then Rebecca walked in, wearing white, calm, regal. She smiled at the press like she was attending a gala. Her lawyer tried to stall, said I was unstable, said this was a grieving daughter misdirecting pain. Eva dropped the Blackwood connection, the shared P.O. box, the fake buyer, the photo. You could hear the breath suck from the room. Rebecca's smile faltered, just for a second. Then Dad stood, loud, angry, red-faced. "All she wants is attention. Her mother was losing it. We had to act." The judge raised a hand. Silence. "This," she said, "is no longer a property dispute. This is a possible criminal conspiracy." She turned to Eva. "You have leave to escalate." Court adjourned. Outside, reporters gathered. I didn't speak. Not yet. But as I stood on the steps, watching Rebecca huddle with her lawyer, something in her posture changed. Fear. And behind it, someone else watching me. Same man from the photo. Black suit, sunglasses, no expression. But I recognized the shoes. He'd been at the back fence, the night I found the hatch. He raised a hand, not a wave, just a slow warning, and then he vanished into the crowd. The man in the black suit disappeared into the crowd before I could follow, but his message lingered like smoke. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Back in Eva's office, we pored over every photo, every court filing, every thread we'd pulled loose. And then, just before dusk, my phone buzzed. A text. No number. "Check with your cousin. Your mom didn't trust lawyers. She gave it to family." I stared at it for a long time, my pulse crawling up my throat. There was only one cousin it could mean. Leah. We hadn't spoken in years, not since the funeral, but I remembered how close she and Mom had been, closer than I ever realized. I texted her, asked to meet. She replied within minutes. That night, we sat in her small kitchen, the sound of cicadas humming through the window screens. She poured tea into mismatched mugs like we weren't sitting on the edge of a bombshell. "You look like her," Leah said softly. I wrapped my hands around the mug, steadying them. "Did she give you something?" Leah nodded. "She didn't want your dad to find it. Said if anything happened, I'd know when it was time." She got up, disappeared into the back room, and returned with a small wooden box. It was old, smooth with wear. I recognized it. It had sat on Mom's nightstand for years. My fingers trembled as I opened it. Inside, a sealed envelope, a notarized document, and a flash drive. I opened the envelope first. A letter, written in Mom's hand. "Sienna, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone and they've tried to take what isn't theirs. This will was written in private and witnessed. They don't know it exists. Use it. Fight for what's yours." My breath caught. The notarized document, dated 6 months before her death, named me as the sole heir. Full transfer of the house. No mention of Dad, no mention of Rebecca. Eva's hands shook as she scanned it the next morning. "This changes everything." We filed immediately. The court date was fast-tracked. The other side panicked. That afternoon, Rebecca's attorney emailed a proposed settlement, partial profit share, retraction of the conservatorship claim, mutual non-disparagement. I didn't even read it twice. "No," I told Eva. "We don't settle. Not anymore." But just when I thought I had the upper hand, another twist. That night, I opened the flash drive. Inside, one folder labeled Blackwood Records, Final Copy. Hundreds of documents, contracts, emails, transfer histories, all tied to a larger web of property flips, fake shell buyers, offshore deposits, and right at the center, Dad. Not just a participant, a coordinator. He wasn't drowning. He was orchestrating the storm. I sat there, fingers numb, nausea crawling up my spine. Everything he told me growing up, about honesty, about legacy, about doing the right thing, it was all fiction. I sent Eva a screenshot of the file list. Within minutes, she called. "This isn't just fraud, Sienna. This is federal." My voice cracked. "Can we prove it? If we use this in court, we won't just win the house. He could face criminal charges." I closed my laptop slowly. A war I didn't start had become something bigger than I'd ever imagined. The next day in court, Eva handed the new will to the judge. Official, sealed, witnessed, dated. Dad's lawyer tried to object, claimed it was forged, but the notary was present, and so was Leah. She swore under oath she'd kept it safe since Mom handed it to her. Rebecca stayed silent, but I saw it. That flicker, panic. The judge asked for clarification. "Who is the rightful heir?" Eva stood. "Sienna Varick, no contest." And just like that, the tide turned. But not before Dad took the stand. He looked older than I remembered, heavier. Sweat pooled at his collar. The judge asked him directly, "Did you knowingly suppress an updated will?" He hesitated, then, "I didn't know it existed." Liar. But I didn't interrupt. The judge granted a recess. Outside, I found myself face to face with Rebecca. She stood beneath the awning, lighting a cigarette with fingers too steady for someone who'd just watched her plan collapse. "You think this is a win?" she said without turning. This is just the surface. I stared at her. What else are you hiding? She smiled. You'll see. And walked away. That evening, Ava and I met again, this time not in her office but at my mother's house, my house. It still felt unreal. We sat in the living room, floor covered in printed contracts from the flash drive. This is enough for a federal investigation, Ava said. We can submit it. Let them handle the rest. I nodded, but something didn't sit right. I need to know what's under the slab. Ava looked at me. You think it's related? I think whatever my mom was afraid of, it wasn't just legal, it was personal, and it's buried. The next morning, I hired a private contractor. No permits, no city interference. We returned to the overgrown garden behind the house. I pointed to the slab, the faint square outline. Dig here. By noon, the concrete was cracked. By 2, the slab was lifted, and beneath it, a safe, old, rusted, bolted into the ground. I stared at it, chest hollow. The contractor looked up. Combination? I shook my head. No idea. He stepped aside. It'll take time to break. So I waited. Every second stretched. Then, a click. The door creaked open. Inside, beneath a layer of plastic-wrapped paper, sat one item, a photo. My mother, holding a baby. Not me, a boy. On the back, scrawled in faded ink, he has no idea he exists, but the blood proves it. I didn't breathe. It wasn't just about the house. It was about who owned it, and who came before me. I held the photo for a long time, not because I didn't understand what it meant, but because I did, the baby in my mother's arms. He wasn't me, and the words on the back made it clear. He has no idea he exists, but the blood proves it. My father had another child, a secret one, and Mom knew. Maybe she stayed silent out of fear. Maybe she thought it would all fade with time, but she didn't bury the truth. She sealed it in a box, beneath concrete, behind years of betrayal, and trusted I'd find it. I brought everything to Ava. The safe, the photo, the will, the drive. She didn't blink. We end this, all of it. 2 weeks later, we sat across from Dad and Rebecca in a closed courtroom. No reporters, no deals, just the reckoning. Eva presented everything. The second will, the Blackwood files, the fake buyer network, the backdoor deed, the fraudulent mental health report, and finally, the evidence of a second son, a paternity cover-up used to launder proceeds through inheritance evasion. Rebecca's composure cracked first. "This is slander," she said, voice brittle. "None of this is admissible." The judge cut her off. "Ms. Crane, forged medical records and a sealed false deed are not only admissible, they're felonies." Dad said nothing. Not when Eva laid out the offshore accounts. Not when the notary confirmed her signature on the real will. Not when I stood and told the court. My mother fought for her life, and even after her death they tried to erase her, but she left the truth for me, in her house, in her words, in her silence. I didn't cry. I didn't need to. The court ruled in my favor. The deed was restored. The false conservatorship petition was dismissed with prejudice. The financial fraud referrals were escalated to the state. And Dad? He finally looked at me, not with regret, not even rage, just the tired gaze of a man who thought the game would never end. He was wrong. 3 days later, I walked through the front door of the house, my house, alone. No press, no lawyers, no watchers behind mirrored glass, just the hush of a place waiting to breathe again. I opened every window, let the air rush in, let the dust rise. In the kitchen, I scrubbed the counters until the marble shone. In the pantry, I rehung the old curtain Mom made out of floral bedsheets. I found her teacups, lined them on the shelf. Worn, mismatched, fragile, but intact, like me. Outside in the garden, the soil was still torn up from the slab. I decided to leave it that way, a reminder that what's buried doesn't stay buried forever. Eva called that evening. "They're trying to settle privately," she said. "You can name your figure." I smiled, slow and tired. "Let the law take its course. I'm not here to negotiate anymore." I hung up and stood at the top of the stairs. The house felt still now, not haunted, just resting. I ran my fingers along the wooden banister, remembering the years I used to slide down it in socks, arms wide, pretending I could fly. I couldn't bring my mother back, but I'd honored her, fought for her, and in doing so, finally learned how to fight for myself. I don't know what'll happen to Dad or Rebecca, but I do know this. Legacy isn't about blood. It's about truth, and truth doesn't rot. It waits. My mother trusted me to find it. I did. And now this house, her house, is mine again. For the first time, I feel like I'm home. If you've ever fought to reclaim what was stolen, your peace, your story, your name, I hope you never forget. The quietest strength is knowing who you are when everyone else wants you to forget. Thank you for coming with me. If this story struck a nerve, hit subscribe, like, comment, and share with someone who's been silenced too long. And don't miss the next video. I've got more stories of truth, survival, and sweet revenge coming soon. Until then, stay awake, stay loud, stay you.